Let's have a deeper look at risks in the project. Where can we identify risks? Where do we have to be careful? We can look at assumptions we made during the definition and during the other parts of the project management process. We can have a look what can happen, what can go wrong with the project schedule, the budget, project scope is an important item, quality, and of course we have to look at stakeholders and people, how can they relate to risk. Assumptions are things that are accepted to be true, or we are certain that they can happen, and it may happen that the assumption is in fact not true. Assumptions may be made because of certain parameters are known or assumed to be true. For example, an assumption could be we assume that the money will be available at the beginning of the project. If it's not there, we have a problem. What will we do about that problem? What are the possibilities? When an assumption is not met, we have a risk, typically a threat. Nevertheless, an assumption can also be an underestimation, and it can lead to an opportunity. So when we start with more negative type of assumptions, we may find assumptions that get a better solution than we originally thought about. Risk and the project schedule. The schedule is very important related to risk. We already identified the critical path position of the project. It gave us already an idea how much flexibility we have on the project. It is clear that the critical path, as we defined it, is a path, a set of tasks or activities that we have to monitor closely, because when those activities change duration, there will be an impact on the project. Paths close to the critical path, also called near critical paths, have to be monitored because there is a risk that when something happens, we may have critical path convergence or even a critical path may change. Activities with a large number of predecessors are risk sensitive, and we have to identify those and determine if something can go wrong, what can we do about it. External partners, always a problem when we're working with projects. How reliable are they? And milestones and approvals are also points in the project. Typically, we may have a missing milestone which may lead to problems with the strategy, and we also may have approvals when the project result is not good. We may have to cancel the project. The project budget. Budgets are typically allocated in periodical steps. In our previous example, we had foreseen budget increases every 3 months. Now, when the budget is spent, when the money is gone, no more work can be done, and your project may be halted for a certain time or till there is money again. Money can also be allocated to projects with a higher priority, and then you just have to accept that your project has to wait. Projects may be reduced by the client or sponsors, so the original budget is reduced, and then of course you cannot do all the work that you originally planned. When you go faster or you spend more money, that can also be a problem, because since the budget is only related or to a certain period, when the money is gone, you cannot do anything anymore. In case your project is going faster, you have some uh, almost ready items that you could invoice to your customer, well, it's then up to you to negotiate with the people to get your extra budget, to get the money you need, but you have to convince the people with typically financial information. If you get me this money, I can start invoicing and we will have a positive cash flow faster and it has a positive effect. So you have to use the information to convince the people you're dealing with. The project scope. Scope creep is a threat to the project. Scope creep should be avoided, and all changes, even the approved ones, they lead to changes in the schedule and in the cost and the budget, and of course introduce additional risks. All scope changes need approval, and are those proposed changes compliant with the business case? Do they follow the company's strategy? In certain cases, a scope change may lead to rework and additional costs. You may have some parameter or something you have to change, but in order to do it, you have to redo the work that you already did before, so the costs increase. When you're looking at scope, be aware of internal policies and power games, because some people would like to have certain things on the project even when they are not originally part of the project. So these are elements you have to be very careful about. Let's have a look at risk and quality. Risk events that relate to quality. As said before, quality cannot be compromised. It doesn't mean that we have to have the highest possible quality. Quality should be proportional to the need of the solution. When we want to make or we want to provide a quality level which is too high, it will lead to additional costs, and in fact, nobody would need that extra quality. Solutions, project definition, and planning have to be conducted with quality in mind. Everything you do has to be related or linked to quality. But do not forget, quality is not for free. There is the cost of quality, all the work you have to do to guarantee a good quality, and on the other hand, we have the cost of failure. When something goes wrong, there is a high cost that you have to pay. Just look at the project with the Havilland Comet. Here we had a very high cost of failure. It caused the collapse of the European aeronautical industry. Quality should be integrated in all the processes. When your processes are quality proof, you will have quality output. Stakeholders and people. Stakeholder management is very important. We've already spoken about that. We have to identify the stakeholders, we have to manage them, we have to treat them well, but stakeholders can manage during the project. You have to be aware that there can be changes in the stakeholders, and stakeholder management is, like all the other processes, a repetitive process. Also, the people that were assigned to your project may change. People may leave the company, they may get promoted, they may be taken away from your project to work on a more important project, and it can be very critical for your project when this is done with critical resources. You have to know who your critical resources are and make sure that they are guaranteed, or that you have a solution in case something would happen with them. In certain cases, technology may be used to replace people, but it may introduce additional risks. Compliance with programs, compatibility, all things like that. it doesn't always work, and be sure it never works like the sellers are trying to sell you. When you start working on a project, you have to take into account the learning curve. While you're doing the project, you learn how to do the project, you learn how to communicate with the people. And the learning curve, in fact, is a way to see how people improve and how activities are completed more efficiently when you continue further in the project. In some cases, you have to send people to trainings. A training, you need somebody who has to be PMP certified or somebody who has to have a project management certification of a course. People go to these courses, they may have a test at the end, and if you fail the test, you don't have the certificate. It happens sometimes, not so much with this type of trainings, but with PMP trainings, it's not easy to pass, or with certification trainings that you have for utilizing Cisco products. Those trainings can be very challenging. If you fail a training or the person fails a training, it may have a negative impact on your project. Risks and people, stakeholders, and all kinds of parameters. Let's get ready for the next session. We will have to start with the risk management process. See you there. Thank you.